Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or if you're new, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm very excited to be back. This is my second video. I'm just really looking forward to this summer and having a great time with all of you, rereading my old writing. If that stands the test of time, probably not. But today is officially chapter 1 of It's Not That Bad to Lose Your Mind. If you haven't seen the prologue, I recommend going back to my first video and watching that for the prologue. I kind of explain the reasoning behind my story, and I also read the prologue, which introduces some of the characters. This is introducing different characters. Honestly, if I was thinking this through, I might actually make this another part of the prologue because it's still not in the perspective of the main character, and there are alternating POVs throughout the story. So chapter 1, I posted this April 5th, 2014. That was 7 years ago. Oh my goodness, this is 7 years old. I'm so old. I'm only 22 and yet I'm like ancient. Okay, so chapter 1. This is 8 months after the prologue. So yeah, I might really want to put that in my prologue if I were to rewrite this. Okay. 8 months later. Tsar Elias was becoming more and more thankful that his son, Prince Damien, had declined his offer of joining him on his trip to Novel Europe to celebrate the country's 100th anniversary and to try, once again, to make a peace treaty. 107 years ago, a new dictator, much like that Hitler in the early 1900s, rose and rallied many countries of Europe together to fight. France, the Netherlands, Finland, Norway, Italy, Spain, Luxembourg, Germany, Belgium, Switzerland, and Greece. Okay, that was kind of tough. It wasn't the longest war ever, only 7 years, but it quickly became the bloodiest. Over half of Earth's population was obliterated before the other countries of Earth granted them their wish, to become one giant country and to have nothing to do with the rest of Earth. Okay. That's a lot to unpack, and that is only the first paragraph. Okay, we're gonna move on. I don't even know what I was thinking there. That's so many countries that I named. I clearly did not know how war worked. I still don't think I really know how war worked, but that just seems like I don't feel like all of those countries could accurately work together towards a common goal. But whatever. Over those 100 years, the rest of Earth had made some changes too. England, Ireland, Wales, America, and Canada all came together to make a country with a monarchy instead of a democracy, no matter how hard the Americans argued, named Kadiring. Asia, renamed Vmest, took in all the unwanted countries of Novel Europe and named a royal family to take care of the entire continent, which was currently Tsar Elias, his wife Anique, his son Damien, and his twin daughters Kira and Karine. Australia and Africa stayed the same, although they did fight in the war against Novel Europe. Unfortunately, after World War III, Novel Europe still wasn't satisfied and committed many terrorist attacks, no matter how much the UCE, United Countries of Earth, the new organization they formed, which Novel Europe refused to be a part of, tried to pacify them. This is so bad. I love how I put England and America together. Like, these two, like, there's an entire ocean, sea separating them, and they're supposed to be a country? Okay. The past 10 years, however, had been strangely calm, so the other leaders of the world, and I'm using so many parentheses in these, I don't recommend using parentheses when you're, like, actually writing. For some reason, and I don't know if this is because of, like, my traditional, like, copy editor, college writing coming out of me, but writing, like, with parentheses just seems kind of like a cop-out. Like, there are other ways you can add in the information, because if your information is in parentheses, then that makes it seem like it's not important and it could be easily taken out. That's just a tip. So, the past 10 years, however, had been strangely calm, so the other leaders of the world, King Armstrong and Queen Colette of Kadiring, Tsar Elias of Vmest, I should have named his wife too, Prime Minister Tay of Africa, and Baron Barnett and Baroness Fane of Australia had all gathered in the capital city, Mooistaad? Mooie. Okay, 15-year-old me. To celebrate the 100th anniversary of Novel Europe, to try and get in the Queen's good graces so she would finally sign the peace treaty and let the monarchs sleep in peace knowing that their countries were safe. However, that wasn't why Tsar Elias was thankful that Damien hadn't come with him. It was because the hallway he had accidentally stepped down on his way to his chambers were full of what he could only guess were experiments. All of the walls down the hallway were made of plexiglass, allowing him to see horrors that he could not even imagine. Giant plants, 20 feet tall, with sharp teeth and ravenous purple eyes, all struggling to uproot themselves from the tiny pots where their bodies started. The ones that managed to free themselves of their prisons were lying on the ground, coughing up blood. Their plants. Elias turned around to see the room on the opposite side and found it was full of penguins. He breathed a sigh of relief at the normalcy of them before looking closer and seeing that one penguin was made up of hundreds of tiny ants. And upon even closer inspection, he found that the ants were crawling over the penguins and that the tinny sound he heard before was screaming. He didn't even know that penguins could scream. Can penguins scream? He staggered backward, bile rising in his throat. Instead, he pushed it down and righted himself, making a mental note to see if in the peace treaty they could negotiate anything about these little experiments. He walked back down the hall to try and find his room. Right before he turned out onto the hallway, he heard a scream, a girl's scream. He whipped around and strained his ears. He heard the scream again, loud and hysterical. Elias set out at a jog down the hallway of horrors, keeping his gaze straight ahead and following as the screams got louder. The farther he went down, the more closed off the hallways got, changing from plexiglass to plaster to marble. He stopped as he saw a pile of fabric lying on the floor and picked it up. Nothing was underneath it, but he could see a mirror on the wall above it. Throwback to my last prologue. Another blood-curdling scream brought Elias out of his thoughts and back to his search for the girl. He stood up and walked, slower now because the screams were closer. One final terrifying scream led Elias to wrench open a door that showed a medical room filled with people in white lab coats, some of which were messing with vials and scalpels and syringes, the others staring out a window that showed a padded room with a convulsing girl on the inside. "What is this?" he shouted, outraged. The people in white lab coats all looked up at him. I did not say looked, I just have look, but it should be looked. Startled. A man with a clipboard was the first to recover and stepped forward. I switched tenses here, and that's not good. "Do you have clearance to be in the room, sir?" he asked. "Sorry, to be in this room, sir?" he asked. Elias stepped farther into the room just as the door next to the large window opens, exposing a beautiful woman who looked weary before quickly masking it with the cool indifference her people were known for, Queen Danica. Elias cleared his throat uncomfortably and bowed stiffly. "Your Majesty." She returned the gesture respectfully and eyed him skeptically. "Elias, pray tell, what are you doing in here, in this part of the castle?" she asked. Elias readjusted his jacket and straightened his spine in the position that normally left people cowering, but seemed to do nothing to affect the queen. "I heard a girl screaming. I believe I had every right to investigate," he answered. Elias watched as her upper lip curled into a sneer before quickly pressing them back together. He knew the Europeans had some sort of power, and the more beautiful or handsome they were, the stronger it was. He also knew that for women, the more beautiful they were, the less they were allowed to think and feel. He assumed that the queen was brought up that way, considering she had had an older brother who was to inherit the throne, but he was dead. He also assumed that the same rules still applied to the queen, but perhaps to a lesser extent. After all, a queen must make decisions for her country, and that required thinking. "Perhaps," she answered calmly, "but this is also my castle, my home, My country, she hissed threateningly. Elias knew he was walking on thin ice, but he couldn't allow a girl to be tortured when there was something he could do about it. I understand that, Your Highness, but you are torturing a girl, and I would like to know why, Elias demanded. Danica closed her eyes and inhaled deeply through her nose before letting the breath out. When she opened her eyes again, she seemed more focused and determined. The girl is being punished for her crimes, she replied smoothly. Which are, Elias prompted. She narrowed her eyes at him, but continued. Treason, she answered simply. Crimes against the throne. It's all really quite simple, Elias. Now I suggest you go clean up for dinner before she's not one of your people. That's him interrupting. The queen stopped in mid-sentence and stared, disbelieving, at the ruler of the Mest. Excuse you? I said, Elias continued, that she is not one of your people. I can tell. She is the only human you have captured here. You lot are much too proud to waste potential talent, and if she were a traitor, you would have had her killed. I know you, Danica. You have no mercy. How does he know her all of a sudden? The queen pursed her lips, and Elias could tell she was thinking, calculating the possible outcomes of the situation. Where is she from? He asked, unperturbed. I'm not sure I needed that word there. She is technically a citizen of Novel Europe. Her father was from the Netherlands state. I still have ties to her. You're avoiding the question. Her father probably escaped to another country. That's where he met her mother. Am I correct? Elias asked. The queen chewed her lip before nodding her head, ever so slightly. Her mother was American Kadirian. They were both killed 9 years ago. We stepped in and took the girl. Kept her safe, stated the queen. Elias let out a loud, bitter laugh. Kept her safe? She looks as if she's lost her mind. That's what happened, hasn't it? You've driven her mad. The queen kept silent during Elias's interrogation and bit her lip with the intent of biting it off. Elias stepped forward and touched the young queen's arm lightly, yet reassuringly. Let the poor girl go. Let the poor girl go. The queen shrugged his touch off and started pacing. Just let her go? I don't think so. She's the property of Novel Europe. I don't care where she was born. I don't care where she was raised. She is ours. The queen slammed her fist down on the medical table, rattling the tools and startling the people. Her rage was full-blown and made her look like a vengeance-seeking angel, beautiful yet terrifying. Besides, Danica regained her composure and brushed some non-existent dust off her dress. She's nowhere else to go. My country would gladly take her in, Elias heard himself say. The queen froze, knowing that she'd backed herself into a corner. If another country offered to take a prisoner, citizen or not, or no, then the host country would be deeply offending the other country's generous gift if they didn't take it. Elias knew that the queen could care less what the other countries thought of Novel Europe, considering how disfavored it already was. But he also knew the values of Novel Europe. When a man offered something to a woman, she couldn't say no. I don't like that. I don't like that I wrote that. Queen Danica opened and closed her mouth 3 times before she composed herself enough to reply. All right, she said. She's yours. The queen then motioned the man in a white lab coat over to them. Prepare the girl to leave. The man looked shocked and didn't bother to cover it up. But, my queen, missin', what are you talking about? You can't The man spluttered before the queen cut him off. I meant exactly what I said. I'm the queen, and you will do as I say, Danica stated firmly. She turned once again to the monarch of the Mest. If you'd like, the girl is still awake. You can go talk to her. See just how messed up she really is. She then stormed out of the room. Elias stood, shocked, for a moment before the man in a white lab coat motioned for him to go into the room. He walked shakily to the door and entered through it. The girl in the middle of the room stopped her sobs and looked up at him. Something in her seemed to vaguely realize that this man wasn't part of the same people who came in and tortured her. But that didn't stop her from scurrying away from him as best as she could. Don't be afraid, child, Elias soothed. I'm not going to hurt you. I've come to help you. Can you tell me your name? I don't know, she answered. What? Elias asked, thoroughly confused. Well, I know, but I don't remember, she cried. How do you not remember your name? Elias asked, walking closer to the girl. They took it away, the people in the lab coats. The girl's voice got stronger as she talked, steadier. Do you remember anything? Elias asked. The girl shook her head no. I suppose we'll figure out your name later. He offered her a small smile, which she answered by staring through him. I can spare a couple of my guards to come collect you tomorrow. They'll take you back to the mess, and hopefully you can get settled in by the time I get back. I shouldn't be more than 2 days. 2 or 3 days. Elias looked at the girl for approval, but she was silent. I'm leaving, she whispered. Elias was suddenly alarmed. Do you not want to go? He asked. Then, for the first time since he entered, the girl smiled, a smile that lit up her face and made it seem like hope was still in the world. I'm leaving. Did you guys hear that? I'm leaving. Oh, thank you, the girl cried. Then she started to giggle. Soft at first, then louder so it turned to laughter, then cackling. A woman in white came through the door and escorted him out, but he could still hear the girl's laughter ringing through his ears. So different from the screaming that was not even minutes before. For the first time, he truly believed she might be insane. Yep, that is exactly how I remember writing that last sentence. So yeah, that was chapter 1 of It's Not That Bad to Lose Your Mind.